Hi. So you joined me here today in a car which I think doesn't get enough love, or at least not enough as it deserves anyway. So we are sat here in my 2001 Vauxhall Vectra. Before you turn off, it's the V6, but it's also the 2.6 V6, so it's a slightly rarer one of the two. I think they did do a 3.2 as well, possibly. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that the 2.6, which is what this one is, I think it's the rarest of them. But anyway, I think this car doesn't get enough love. In general, of all of the Vauxhall Vectras of this shape, really, the Mark I Vauxhall Vectra, I think they just kind of got forgotten about, really. There's a few people out there, there's a few groups and a bit of a following, but it's nowhere near as much as I thought it would be by now. It's quite strange. It's definitely a car that's been forgotten, I think. I mean, look at the Nova. I've had 3 Novas in my past when I was young and, you know, immature. I still am. But anyway, they were great cars, but they're basically just a Coke can with wheels and sort of an engine, but there's nothing to them. I mean, they're literally, they don't even have a proper dashboard. It's like just a shelf, basically, and everything underneath it's just hollow. There's no ABS, there's no power steering, there's no central locking, there's no airbags, there's nothing on them. It's just a car. And I bought my first, all 3 of my Novas actually, for way under £1,000. I think my first ever car was a Nova, and I paid £330 for it. Now, you'd be lucky to find a rotted out shell for, what, 5 grand maybe? It's crazy for a really good one as well. Not even an SR or a GSI. For a really tidy 1.2, you're looking at probably about 8 grand for a Nova. It's mental. Cavalier, it's another one. Great cars. They've started to go up. They've started to go up in value. Calibras, again, they've gone up in value. But Mark I Vectras, for some reason, they still kind of hovering around the same sort of price, sort of 3 grand, maybe 5 a push for a really good one. There's the occasional people out there that are trying to ask stupid money, but they just don't sell. But my question is why? They're good cars. Anyway, enough waffling. We're going to go for a little drive, and I'm going to tell you about it as we drive, and why I think it's actually quite an underrated, quite cool car, and a future classic. So let's go for a little drive. So this one is, you probably can't see from the camera view that you've got, but it's a 2001 hatchback 2.6 V6 SRI. That's the model of Vectra that it is. When I bought it, it did have quite a few issues, which is one reason why I think these cars probably are still at the lower end of things. Now, when I say issues, I don't mean massive issues. I don't mean like, you know, the engine's going to fall out and things like that. I mean little things, like electrical issues mainly. They have quite a lot of sensorage going on the engines, and back when this was made, Vauxhall kind of went a little bit mental with sensors, and they put a sensor on everything and kind of overdid it as well. I mean, this car, it's a V6, right? So it's a 24 valve V6. You've got 2 banks, of course. Now, you'd think that 2 lambda sensors would be enough, but no, Vauxhall went, let's put 4 on it. Now, all that does is make things way more complicated, and of course, the emissions, even if they're okay, if they're slightly off what they should be, the engine's ECU goes, "Wah! What's going on?" And it throws an engine management light up, even though there's probably nothing wrong, because it's got too much. It's too much going on. The parameters are just way too tight. So that's one little annoying thing in general is the sensors and things like that. But you know, they're easy enough to replace. They're not that expensive, so I wouldn't worry about things that much in that term. One of the other things that these cars do suffer with is oil leaks, and that is 99% of the time down to the cam cover gaskets, so the rocker cover gaskets. On the earlier engines of the V6, which was fitted to the Calibras, the Omega, and also the Cavalier as well. I had a Cavalier V6 2.5, and it was a manual as well, a very rare one. I loved that car. But those ones, they had plastic rocker covers, which is the stupidest thing ever, because they just warp. As soon as they get hot, they warp, and you leak, get oil leaks. And you're constantly replacing gaskets and stuff on them and everything. The spark plug holes fill up with oil. It's really annoying. But when Vauxhall revived the V6 and put it in the Vectra, they went, aha, oil leaks. We'll fix that by putting aluminium rocker covers on instead of plastic ones. It didn't work. It still leaks. I don't know why, but they do. They still leak. It's a terrible design. So yeah, look into that. Make sure that you haven't got no oil leaks going on there. You will have at some point, if it hasn't already. Now, the downside of this is the gaskets themselves are quite cheap and quite easy to get hold of. The downside, and this is a big downside, is that you have to remove the entire inlet system to get to them. Because being a V6, like that, but it's fitted the wrong way round. It's fitted transverse. So the rear bank of the V, basically the three cylinders that are at the back of the engine towards the bulkhead of the car, they are completely inaccessible, basically, because everything goes over the top of them. It's the same with the front. It's the same, basically. It's kind of like a mirror image engine, but because it's at the front, you've got access, so you can get things off and take it apart, and it's not too much of an issue. But the rear, it's just a pain in the ass. So does sound nice. I got sidetracked then. Yeah, so bear that in mind, that taking all the inlet manifold off and the plenums and everything, it is a little bit of a faff. I mean, if you're an alright home mechanic and things like that, you won't struggle with it. You'll probably swear a bit, but you won't struggle with it. You'll be alright. And it is a job that you can do at home. So get those things done, make sure everything else is alright, check for any oil or anything like that in your coolant, because these engines don't really suffer with any major mechanical issues, but being a big V6 and being stuffed in that tight engine bay, they can get hot. And if they're not maintained properly, not looked after and things like that, then obviously that heat can have an effect on the engine and you could have gaskets go. So check for things like that, oil consumption. Finally, the only thing I can think of is stem seals. They do tend to fail a little bit past 100,000 miles or so. Not always, some are absolutely fine. Again, it depends on maintenance, how well they've been looked after, what oil they've had in them, lots of different factors like that. But bear in mind, if they need doing, that can be a pretty major job, because obviously the stem seals, they sit right inside the cylinder head and they go, the valves go in between and everything. So, yeah, I'm not going to go into techno-babble too much, but it's quite a big job to change them. So bear that in mind. The way that you could tell easily whether your stem seals are gone or on the way out is on a cold start. So if you go to look at one of these cars, make sure that it hasn't been started, not even once before you get there. You want it to be completely cold, unstarted. Get someone to start it, stay around the back, wait for them to start it and watch the exhaust. If you get a puff of blue smoke for a few seconds, or even a second or so, your stem seals have gone and they're on the way out. So unless you're prepared to do that job, or you're going to get the car for way cheaper than it is advertised, then I would suggest to probably walk away and find another one. Right, on to why I think that this is a good car and a fun car to drive. So, obviously it's a V6, which is great for noise and, you know, it feels nice, and it's a nice engine. This particular year of V6 that Vauxhall made, I think is one of the nicest sounding V6 engines that Vauxhall has ever made. I think they just got it right. The way that the plenums are set up and everything else on it, it just sounds really nice. It's got a very nice throaty growl to it, but unusually for a V6 as well, it actually does rev quite high. It hits the rev limiter nigh on 7,000 RPM, give or take. It's basically 7,000 RPM, and for a V6, that's pretty good for a V6 that's fitted in a fairly sort of run-of-the-mill car. That's actually really good. I once, for some unknown reason to humankind, bought a Mondeo ST200. Sorry. It was awful. I hated that car. I don't know why I bought it. It was awful. It was very slow for a V6. It didn't handle very well. It didn't sound very well. It was built awfully. The only thing that I liked about it were the seats. Everything else was awful. But that used to hit the rev line at like 6,300. So it never had enough. You were for always hitting the rev limiter in it, always. Because if you're used to driving an engine that revs high, you get into that and you think, oh, V6, that sounds nice, and you rev it, and before you know it, you're bouncing off the rev limiter. And it's just, it was an awful, I hated it, awful car. It was basically just rust on wheels as well. So, yeah, didn't like that. But this revs all the way to 7 pretty much, and it feels pretty powerful as well for the way it revs. It doesn't kind of drop off like most engines that rev high do. They kind of get to about, I don't know, 3/4 of their rev limit, and then you notice that they start to drop off the power a little bit, but they still keep revving. Well, this one feels pretty good, to be fair. It feels like it holds the power fairly high. There's enough low down torque as well. You're not going to shred any tyres with it, really. Mainly because you can't turn the bloody traction control off, which that really does annoy me. Because the Cavalier that I had a little button in the middle, and you could turn the traction control off, and it was great. But on this, you can't do that. I don't know why Vauxhall did that, because the 2.5, you can turn the traction control off of this Vectra. But I have no idea what this guy's doing, by the way. Trying to park an house very badly. Yes, this one you can't turn it off, and it really, it almost ruins the driving experience, because you can't really push it past its limits because it won't let you. You can't wheel spin it really either, because it just cuts all the power out. And obviously wheel spinning it's pointless, but it's bloody good fun. And you can't do it because it won't let you. There probably are ways round it. You can probably go into the ECU and have things changed and maybe have the wiring messed around with and things, but I can't be bothered doing all of that and messing around with it. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. But it is annoying. That will admit that is one thing that I don't like about this car. It's probably the only thing really that really does wind me up. Everything else is fine. What else was I saying? Yeah. So it's a good car. It drives nice, it feels nice, it sounds nice, it handles okay, besides the traction control issue cutting in. The brakes, they're pretty good. Brakes work fine. They've got enough power to stop the car from high speed. I haven't had no issues with any of the brakes yet. The standard exhaust, it looks nice. I think it's Ermshire, the back box. It's got like a square tip to it, and I think some of them did have twin oval as well. This one's twin oval, but it's not standard. And I would recommend to change the exhaust as well, because it just frees up more of that V6 sound, which is what you want really. If you've got a V6, you want the noise. I mean, you can't say that that's not addictive. It's a good noise. It's a growly, angry noise. My wife calls it a growly bit when she floors it. She floors it and she goes, "Oh, growly bit." And it is, it does. It sounds like an angry animal, like a tiger that's been slapped. It's very nice. So, yeah, I think this is a car that's been forgotten. It's got everything on it as well. It's got a digital display on the dashboard for your trip and your date and your time and how many miles you got left and all that. It's even got a stopwatch. Why has it got a stopwatch? I don't know, but it's got one and it's cool. You've got aircon as well, which doesn't work, but it's got aircon. You've got electric windows, which do work, but they do tend to stick a bit, so be warned of that as well. What else has it got? Central locking. It's the loudest central locking of any car that I've ever had. It sounds like a bomb going off. You press the button, like on a nice modern car, you know, you press the button and you just get a little click, and it's locked. On this, you press the button and it goes, padoosh, and then it locks. It's like, whoa, what was that? I don't know why it's so loud, but it is. It's very loud. But it works, so again, can't complain. Boot space. Very, very, very good. Has a massive boot. You could fit many bodies in there. So that's good, boot-wise. Ow, that was a big hole. And that brings me on to my next thing, which is the suspension. The suspension on these is quite stiff. It's a weird combination. They feel a little bit wallowy, so you'd expect it to handle bumps well, but it also smashes you in the spine every time you hit a large bump. So, a bit odd there. You probably could get away with changing it and just putting some different springs on, maybe. That might help. This one here is completely standard ride, so the suspension on this is completely standard. The only thing I've done is fit some 18s from an Astra SRI. They are the is it pentagrams or something? I don't know, penta something or other. Penta wheels, I think they're called. I fitted those, and they look really nice, and they fit perfectly. They don't rub, and it's great. But obviously the tyre profile is very low on them, so you do get that extra bashing every time you go over a bump. But other than that, you're fine. You're all good to go, really. What else? The mirrors. Yes, the mirrors is a big talking point of these Vectras. So Jeremy Clarkson famously once said about this Vectra, he said that they felt like he felt like it had been built in a rush, and that they hadn't really paid any attention and stuff to it, other than the mirrors, right? Now, I love Jeremy Clarkson, he's my idol, but I do disagree with him on that one. I think that this car actually does deserve a bit more praise than that, and I don't think they did rush it so much, and I think that it is actually okay, and it has been built with a little bit of thought. But I do agree with what he says about the mirrors. Now, he says that, they just put some funky mirrors on it to make it look exciting, and that's about it. And you know what? They kind of did, because the mirrors on these Mark 1 Vectras, they are unique. They are quite a cool looking mirror, but you can't see sod all out of them. They're awful. They really are awful. When you're trying to park this car, it's like it defies the laws of physics, because you can line yourself up. If you're reversing into a space, you can line yourself up perfectly in, say, the left-hand mirror, perfectly, and you are reversing back, and you can see the line, and you are perfectly straight on that line. Perfectly. You get out and you park, and you're like that. And how has it done that? How has it turned a straight line into an angle? It doesn't make any sense, because even if you use the right-hand mirror and look at the right-hand line, you reverse back and you think, yes, that's nice and straight. Everything's going totally as I want it to. You park, you get out, and you're at an angle. Why? How does it do that? It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. They are electric, and, you know, they work as a mirror, but they defy the laws of physics. They can literally bend things that are straight without touching them. It's odd. I don't understand that. Yeah, the mirrors are a bit funky. I will agree with that. They are a bit funky. Excuse me. I've probably missed lots of things to talk about, but this video is going to be about 76 years long otherwise. So I'm going to stop talking in a minute, and I'm going to start driving properly, put my foot down a bit and get some V6 noise going, and you can have a little listen, and see one of the main reasons why I do like these cars. Before I do shut up, I will just give you a price guidance range sort of thing and what to expect when you go to look for one. So I've already said about the mechanics. That's pretty obvious. You go to look for a car, you check out those things. Make sure you check. Sorry, got distracted by a cyclist then. Yes, make sure that you check, obviously, your basic simple things that you would when you go and check a car. Make sure it hasn't been in an accident. Check all your rust patches and things like that, because these cars do tend to rust in pretty typical areas. So you get rust patches on the rear arches, on the doors where the trim goes in between the middle, the front arches as well, and right at the sill on the back. They tend to go there quite a lot as well. So just check and have a little look and see if it's been repaired or welded, or if there's any rust showing and things. They're not terrible, but it is an issue. So just check, because it could explain, if you're going to look at a cheap one, it could explain why it's so cheap, because it may have hidden rust. So just check on that as well. Price wise, I would expect this one here is on 116,000. When I bought it, it was on 100,000. It had just turned to 100,000. Now I paid £1,100 for this, which is cheap, because this one has no rust. It's very clean. The bodywork is almost immaculate. The interior is very, very good as well. It doesn't have a headlining. That was because it was completely sagged and the previous owner threw it out instead of repairing it. So I'm hunting for a headlining at the moment, but that's not the car's fault, that's the previous owner's fault. So we'll ignore that, we'll gloss over that. Yeah, I mean, everything else works. It's up to date. You don't feel like you're in an old car as such, because it does still have most mod-con features that you want, you know, apart from things like maybe Bluetooth connectivity and stuff. But I mean, you can change that. You can fit a new stereo and you can do that, and it's done. And it's what's going to cost you 80 quid, 100 quid maybe for a Bluetooth stereo. So it's not the end of the world. Price wise, if this one didn't have the electrical issues when I went to go and buy it, and it had a headlining, I would have expected to pay about 3 for this, as it was, maybe 3.5. But no, I paid 1,100, and it cost around about another 1,000 to sort out all of the bits and bobs that needed doing on it. So it wasn't too bad of a buy, really. So as a rough estimate, on a good one with around 100,000 miles, you're looking at spending around about 3. And nowadays the prices have started to climb up just a tad, so 3 to 5 grand for a really good one, I'd say is about right from what I've seen other people selling theirs for. But don't get me wrong, there are still bargains out there. You can still pick them up for £1,000. You can pick them up for under £1,000, but they will have issues. They won't be immaculate, so that you will need to spend that bit of extra money on them to revive them again. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to shut up now. Enough talking. Let's whack it down a few gears and listen to that lovely V6 noise. So we're in third at the moment, doing 2,500 RPM. Let's have a little listen to the V6. It's such a nice noise. It's a comforting noise. It's sort of that noise that sort of says, I'm there, I've got you. Whatever you need, sir, not a problem. But I'll demonstrate what I said earlier about the revs. So we're going to second. Second, 3,000 RPM. Ready? And that was 7,000 RPM. That was literally, I watched it, 7,000 RPM from a V6 in a Vauxhall Vectra. I mean, That's not bad. You can't really moan at that. It pulls well, it sounds nice, it puts a smile on my face. And it's just a cheap car, you know, it is a cheap car. I genuinely think these have not had their time yet. Give it another few years or so, people will start to realise, and they will start to go up in value. They have to. There's got to be a time where these start to go up in value, because the amount of car that you get for your money is it's amazing. They're just a nice, fun, and now rare car. What else can I say? I think that's about it. Well, thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, extra thanks, because I have waffled for the entire video, so sorry about that. But I hope that I've helped and answered some questions, and have maybe even swayed you into wanting to buy one of these Vauxhall Vectras. Yeah. There we are. I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to navigate this roundabout and not crash, because that would be very bad. And then I will say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.